Cordial welcome again to the Bob and Ray Public Service feature, Views Behind the Views, Behind the People, Behind the News. And this gentleman with me, learned gentleman, I should say, is Mr. Hubert C. Waxford. He's prepared to shed light on one of the really great problems of our time. Mr. Waxford is chairman of the Farsighted Planners for Urban Renewal. I assume, sir, that you call yourself Farsighted Planners because your members all wear thick spectacles like those you have on?
No, that's not correct at all, Mr. Elliott. Actually, I'm very nearsighted, but my urban planning is farsighted.
Well, I don't know how you manage that, but I understand you put forth a number of new theories on urban renewal from your office in Washington.
I did have an office in Washington, but it was torn down on the recommendation of another urban renewal planner.
Well, in any event, I guess we can...
I'll get him for that, too, if it's the last thing I ever do. Yeah, he turned my office into a parking lot for his office.
Well, I've heard that urban renewal creates some innocent victims. I guess you'd be one of those, huh?
Urban renewal does not need to create innocent victims, Mr. Elliott. I'm afraid our work has gotten that reputation because planners in many cities started out by tearing down slums. And, of course, slum dwellers are the ones who have the most trouble finding a new place to live that they can afford.
Well, I can appreciate that. But how can you renew an urban area without getting rid of the slums?
Oh, you do that eventually. But first, the modern, expensive apartment buildings should all be destroyed. And then low-cost public housing is put up to replace those. And, of course, that gives slum dwellers a place to move before you tear down the slums.
Oh, that sounds like far-sighted urban planning, all right. Well, what becomes of the people who live in those modern, expensive buildings that are the first to be torn down?
Well, my group isn't terribly concerned about what happens to them. They've got plenty of money, so they can move to another city or put their furniture in storage while they take a round-the-world cruise or something. There's a number of options open to them.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, of course, there are other forms of urban blight besides substandard housing, right?
Well, I might also mention that my group is concerned with other forms of urban blight besides substandard housing. Take old warehouses, for example.
You favor replacing them with new warehouses on the outskirts of cities to help cut down on truck traffic, right?
Oh, I never considered that idea, but I'm sure I would have rejected it if I had. Now, you see, it's my theory that we don't need warehouses at all anymore. And most of the food we eat now is processed, so it won't spoil if it's just piled up in the sun in vacant lots.
Well, what happens when it rains?
Well, urban planners can't control the weather. If a city is located in a damp climate, there's not much anybody can do about that.
No, I guess that was foolish of me to expect you people to do the impossible.
That's right. Now, for instance, I recently calculated that Tucson, Arizona could become a city of 1 million if it had a good harbor on the Pacific Ocean, but would have to tear down San Diego and replace it with Tucson to do that. However, I'm hoping that some of the people who had to move away when we tore all the buildings down may eventually come back. If they do, they'll find that it's much better planned than it used to be.
Well, I'm sure that's true, and you've given us all a better understanding of how you improve communities by destroying them, Mr. Waxford.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us today on this edition of Views Behind the Views, Behind the People, Behind the News.